Welcome to Everyday English with Annie. Today we're asking why a man with a PhD from Stanford died, leaving behind this massive mountain of unpaid bills, while, an eighth grade dropout ended up leaving tens of millions of dollars to charity.
Yeah, it's a massive contrast, right?
Totally. So, for those of you joining us for this English listening practice session today, we're exploring a really massive, life altering question. Basically, what is fundamentally more important for your future? Is it financial education or academic education?
And it's such a profound question because it really forces us to look at the scripts we've all been handed since childhood. We're
Yeah.
going to examine if those traditional academic instructions actually make sense in the real complex financial world.
Right. And to do that, we are analyzing this really fascinating stack of excerpts from a famously provocative personal finance text. It's called Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Which is such a classic.
Yeah.
But we should clarify something up front for you listening right now. This deep dive is not about giving you specific investment advice, right?
Oh, exactly. We are definitely not telling you what to do with your paycheck.
Right. We're actually here to practice English comprehension by unpacking the specific vocabulary, the hidden frameworks, and the underlying mindsets that really separate the wealthy from the struggling middle class.
Yeah, we're essentially dismantling the mechanics of how different groups of people view their resources. And the source text does this by contrasting two very distinct philosophies about money, entirely through the lens of two different father figures.
Okay, let's unpack this. We have to start by looking at these two dramatically different role models just to see how their educational backgrounds completely influence their life trajectories.
Right, so on one side, we have the biological father of the author, who the text refers to as the poor dad.
Which, honestly, when you look at his resume, that label feels deeply paradoxical. I
Yeah.
mean, this was a highly educated man.
Oh, incredibly educated. He earned his PhD, he finished his undergrad in less than 2 years, and he did all these postgraduate studies at Stanford, Chicago, Northwestern.
Yeah, and he did all of that on full academic scholarships.
Yeah.
Like, he followed the exact path we were all told to follow, right?
Exactly. He had a super successful career as a government official. He made a really good salary, worked tirelessly. But the text reveals that despite all that academic brilliance, he was constantly on the financial blink.
Yeah, it's wild. When he passed away, he actually left behind unpaid debt.
And then you contrast that with the father of the author's best friend, the guy the text calls the rich dad.
Right, and this man dropped out of school in the 8th grade. He had no pedigree, no diplomas, none of that traditional academic validation that society just loves.
None at all. Yet he built an empire. He became one of the wealthiest men in Hawaii, and he ultimately left this vast fortune to his family, his church, and to charity.
It really just completely shatters that assumed correlation between formal schooling and financial security. But the text argues the true divide wasn't about the degrees on their walls.
No, it was all about the vocabulary of their mindsets. Like the specific words they used every single day literally shaped their material realities.
And the psychological mechanism behind their language is just fascinating. So the academic dad had this deeply ingrained habit, right? He'd see something he wanted and immediately say, I can't afford it.
Yeah, it was an automatic reflex. But the financial dad strictly forbade that phrase from ever being spoken in his house. Instead, he forced them to ask a question. He made them say, "How can I afford it?"
Which I know on the surface that just sounds like some generic self-help positive thinking trick.
Totally sounds like a bumper sticker.
Right. But the source material treats this as a fundamental difference in brain chemistry. Like when you make a declarative statement like, I can't afford it, your brain just accepts the absolute finality of it.
Yeah, the problem is solved, so the brain just powers down and literally goes to sleep.
Exactly. But asking, how can I afford it, forces your brain to stay awake. You are demanding that the world's most powerful computer, your mind, engage in active problem solving.
It's the difference between active and passive cognition. And to be clear, the financial dad wasn't advocating for, reckless spending.
No, not at all. He wasn't saying find a way to buy every luxury item you see. He was just fanatical about mental exercise.
Right.
He viewed the reflex of saying, I can't afford it, as just a symptom of intellectual laziness.
But I do have to pause and push back on the text's terminology here a bit. Calling the highly educated dad poor seems deliberately provocative. I mean, almost to the point of being inaccurate, really.
It definitely rubs people the wrong way.
Yeah, because he was a prominent government official with a high salary and a pension. Sure, he wasn't buying islands in Hawaii, but framing a comfortable public servant as poor just feels incredibly hard. So, like, completely dismiss the security of the middle class.
Well, that friction is exactly what the author wants you to feel. The source material draws a really hard line between two concepts. The financial dad says, there's a difference between being poor and being broke.
Right. Broke is temporary, but poor is eternal.
Precisely. The academic dad was comfortable, yes, but he was incredibly vulnerable. His entire livelihood was completely dependent on a single source of income, his employer.
Ah, I see. So if that government paycheck stopped, his entire lifestyle would just immediately collapse?
Exactly. So it's really a matter of dependence versus independence. The academic education taught him how to be a professional, how to secure a high-paying job, and earn a paycheck. But it completely ignored the mechanics of what to actually do with the money once it hit his bank account.
That makes a lot of sense. And that ties into this brilliant analogy used in the text. So think of your brain like a muscle. Going to the gym and lifting weights exercises your physical body, right?
Right.
Well, asking, how can I afford it, exercises your financial muscle. It increases your capacity to generate wealth. The academic dad let his financial muscle completely atrophy because he relied entirely on his academic muscle to survive.
Yeah, but even if you adopt that active cognition, the traditional academic path still funnels you into a very specific physical reality.
Which is the 9-to-5 job.
Oh, yeah. And the source text argues that this creates a massive psychological trap.
It really is a trap, and it's driven by two fundamental human emotions. The author illustrates this through a highly entertaining childhood story, actually.
Oh, the 10-cent lesson. I love this part.
It's so good. So the author and his friend are 9 years old in the 1950s, right? And they ask the financial dad to teach them how to make money. But before he can, the boys decide to just take matters into their own hands.
As 9-year-olds do.
Right. So they go around the neighborhood collecting empty, used toothpaste tubes, which back in the 50s were literally made of lead.
Which is a detail that sets up a wondrously literal misunderstanding.
Exactly. So they take these lead tubes, they melt them down in a steel pot over a red-hot barbecue grill, and they pour this molten lead into plaster molds.
So dangerous, by the way.
Oh, incredibly dangerous. So the academic dad walks outside, sees this literal makeshift foundry, and asks what on earth they are doing. And the boys proudly announce they are making money. They pop open the plaster mold, and out falls a lead counterfeit nickel.
They took the adult instruction to make money entirely, literally. It's hilarious.
Yeah, the academic dad has to gently explain the concept of counterfeiting and federal laws. But when the financial dad hears about this, he doesn't lecture them at all.
No, he uses their ambition to set up a real-world simulation to teach them about that trap we just mentioned.
Right. He puts them to work in one of his convenience stores. Every Saturday morning, for 3 hours, these 9-year-olds are forced to dust canned goods, and their compensation is an agonizingly low 10 cents an hour.
Which was low even for the 1950s.
Oh, totally. So after a few weeks of this mind-numbing labor, the author's furious. He feels completely exploited. He demands a meeting with the financial dad to ask for a raise, complaining that he hasn't learned a single thing about getting rich.
And that's exactly the moment the financial dad was waiting for. He uses that frustration to teach the real lesson. He tells the boy that life doesn't teach you by lecturing you at a chalkboard. Life teaches you by pushing you around. And just as the boy is expecting a raise, the financial dad takes away the 10 cents entirely. He tells the boys that if they really want to learn how money works, they now have to work in the store for free.
Which pushes the kid to the absolute emotional edge, because a little later, the financial dad sits them down and starts offering them a hypothetical salary.
He tempts them.
Yeah. First 25 cents an hour, then $1, then $2, and finally he offers a massive $5 an hour. Keep in mind, this is 1956. $5 an hour would have made a 9-year-old the richest kid in town.
For sure.
The author admits his brain was literally screaming to say yes. He was hallucinating buying a new bicycle. But he manages to stay completely silent.
Because by pushing them to that breaking point, the financial dad exposed the twin drivers of the trap, what he calls a rat race. Those drivers are fear and greed.
Right.
Traditional education leverages fear, the fear of failing a test, the fear of not getting a good job, the fear of starving, to push people into working for a paycheck. Then, once they get that paycheck, greed takes over.
Or, if you prefer a softer word, desire. Right.
Exactly. Desire. They start dreaming about all the consumer goods that paycheck can buy.
It's easy to look at a 1950s kid dusting cans for pennies and laugh, but honestly, aren't we doing the exact same thing today? We take on massive student debt just to land an entry-level salaried job where inflation completely outpaces our tiny annual 2% raise.
Yeah, it's the exact same
We
mechanism.
are driven by the fear of our loans and the desire for a better apartment. So, what does this all mean? How does someone listening to this break out of that cycle?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this brings us to lesson number 1 of the entire source text.
Yeah.
And that is, the poor and the middle class work for money. The rich have money work for them.
Okay, wow.
Yeah, the financial dad was forcing those boys to physically experience the emotional trap of working for a paycheck. If your decisions are controlled by the fear of not having money and the desire for what a salary can buy, you will forever remain an employee. You will just be trading your finite time for heavily taxed dollars.
But if the goal is to have money work for you, you have to know how to communicate with it, right? You have to actually speak the language of money. And according to the sources, this is the massive missing curriculum in global academic education.
Oh, absolutely.
We spend decades learning how to read complex literature, but we graduate with zero ability to read numbers.
The author actually uses a really vivid architectural analogy for this. He argues that trying to build wealth without a foundation of financial literacy is like trying to build the Empire State Building on a dirt floor.
Yeah, you try to throw up this massive skyscraper of wealth really fast, but because you have no concrete foundation, it quickly becomes the Leaning Tower of suburbia.
That's such a great phrase.
Right, it's just sleepless nights, maxed out credit cards, and crushing mortgage debt.
And to pour that solid concrete foundation, you must master the fundamental vocabulary of accounting. But the financial dad recognized that adults routinely overcomplicate finance with all this jargon. So he operated on the KISS principle, keep it super simple.
I was actually trying to think of a way to visualize his ultra-simple definition. Essentially, an asset is like a golden goose that quietly lays eggs for you every single month. A liability, on the other hand, is like a tapeworm.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it just sits in your stomach and quietly eats your financial nutrients from the inside out.
That is an excellent, visceral way to look at it.
Yeah.
I mean, the financial dad ignored all the complex academic definitions of these terms and focused entirely on the direction of cash flow.
Right, it's just about flow.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
An asset puts money into your pocket whether you work or not. A liability takes money out of your pocket.
Okay, I have to play the role of the traditional middle-class homeowner here because this is where the text gets incredibly controversial. My house is my golden goose. My banker tells me it's an asset. My accountant tells me it's an asset. It has value, it appreciates. How can the text possibly claim otherwise?
Well, the text aggressively challenges that widely accepted dogma. You see, highly educated professionals often follow the crowd out of a deep fear of financial ostracism. They repeat mantras like, "Your home is your biggest investment," without ever actually looking at the mechanical direction of the cash flow. So think about it. If you lose your job tomorrow, does your house deposit money into your checking account, or does it demand money from you for the mortgage, the property taxes, the insurance, and the maintenance?
Well, obviously it demands money. It takes cash out of my pocket every single month.
Therefore, by the strict directional definition of the financial dad, it is a liability. It is the tapeworm, not the golden goose.
That is so hard to hear.
Now, to be fair, the author isn't saying you should never buy a house. He is analyzing the mechanical danger of treating a primary residence as your primary investment vehicle.
Right, because there are hidden costs.
Exactly. The text outlines 3 hidden losses to this strategy. First, the loss of time. Time during which your money could have been compounding in real, cash-producing assets.
Okay, that makes sense.
Second, the loss of additional capital, which gets continually eaten up by the high maintenance expenses of just owning a home.
And the third loss is the loss of education, which actually confused me at first. But I guess if all your available cash is swallowed up by a...
Well, the source material addresses this by advocating for a fundamental shift in motivation. So instead of following the traditional path of working to earn, the financial dad advises working to learn.
Yes, and there is a story in the text that perfectly captures the friction this causes. So the author is in Singapore, and he's being interviewed by this highly respected journalist. She has a master's degree in English literature. She is a brilliant writer, but she's deeply frustrated because her novels aren't selling.
Right.
So the author gives her a simple piece of advice. He says, take a dedicated sales training course.
And her reaction is just explosively defensive.
Oh, she is wildly offended. She immediately packs up her briefcase. She essentially says, I have a master's degree in English literature. I am a highly trained professional. Why would I degrade myself to go to school to learn how to be a salesperson? I despise salespeople.
Her reaction perfectly illustrates the trap of academic overspecialization. In the traditional school system, you are rewarded for learning more and more about less and less.
Right, you specialize.
Yeah, you drill down until you are the ultimate expert in a very narrow, specific field. But the financial dad taught the exact opposite philosophy. To build wealth, he said, you need to know a little about a lot.
Because the tragic irony is that if she had just swallowed her pride and combined her incredible, highly specialized writing skills with even a foundational understanding of sales and marketing, she would have become a best-selling author rather than just a best-writing author.
Exactly. And to explain the mechanics of how the economy actually works, the author introduces a framework called the cash-a-shlow quadrant. It basically divides the world of income generation into 4 distinct letters: E, S, B, and I.
Okay, let's break down the mechanics of those letters.
So E stands for employee. You trade your time for a paycheck. Basically, you have a job. S stands for self-employed or small business owner. Think of a private practice doctor or a freelance consultant. In this quadrant, you own a job.
Got it.
Then B stands for business owner, and I stands for investor.
The crucial distinction here is that the academic system school trains you almost exclusively for the left side of that quadrant, the E and the S.
Right.
It prepares you to be a specialized employee or a specialized solo operator.
But true financial independence is generated on the right side, the B and the I. And the mechanical difference between the S and the B is profound.
How so?
Well, in the S quadrant, you are the system. If you take a month-long vacation, your income completely stops. But in the B quadrant, you own a system that operates independently of your physical presence. You are leveraging other people's time and other people's money.
Ah, I see.
And operating on that right side requires knowing a little about a lot. You have to understand cash flow management, systems engineering, human psychology.
And the text makes a remarkably objective point about the danger of staying on the left side. It argues that if you do follow the academic route and become highly specialized, say you become a commercial airline pilot or a public school teacher, you have massive concentrated risk.
Yeah, your incredibly deep skills do not easily transfer to other industries.
Exactly. Therefore, the text explicitly advises that if you specialize, you absolutely must unionize for your own protection.
It is a brilliant, detached observation about risk mechanics. The author points out that his academic dad, the highly specialized educator, ultimately had to become the head of the teachers union in Hawaii just to protect himself and his peers from market vulnerabilities.
Wow.
Meanwhile, his financial dad, the generalist business owner, fought aggressively to keep unions out of his enterprises. And the text isn't pushing a political agenda here, right? It's simply diagnosing the mechanics of vulnerability. High specialization equals high vulnerability, which necessitates collective protection.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Moving from the left side to the right side, like transitioning from an employee to a business owner or investor, is not just a matter of acquiring technical knowledge. It requires a massive shift in emotional intelligence, specifically regarding how your brain processes failure.
And this is where academic conditioning is arguably the most damaging. The traditional school system is entirely built on penalizing mistakes. If you make a mistake on an exam, your grade is reduced. The straight-A students are simply the individuals who made the fewest errors.
But the text points out that in the real world of systems and investing, the people who take action are inevitably the ones who make the most mistakes. They highlight Thomas Edison, who was widely mocked for making over 1,000 mistakes before successfully inventing the incandescent light bulb.
Yeah, but Edison's perspective was entirely different. He famously said, "I did not fail 1,014 times. I successfully found out what did not work 1,014 times." This raises an important question for you, the listener. Are you allowing the academic fear of making an error to paralyze your financial growth?
That's a deep question.
The source material argues that millions of people actually possess the technical knowledge required to invest, but their emotional terror of losing money completely paralyzes them. They choose the illusion of job security over the pursuit of financial freedom, not because it is logically sound, but because they are simply terrified of failing.
True financial education is about building the emotional fortitude to take calculated, mechanical risks and to extract lessons from your inevitable failures.
Exactly.
Which brings us to the core synthesis of this deep dive. I want to speak directly to you, the listener, as you use this complex material for your English listening practice today. What we have unpacked is a profound dual reality.
Yeah.
Academic education is undeniably crucial. It is the mechanism by which we acquire the complex professional skills necessary to keep a modern society functioning. I mean, we desperately need highly trained doctors, civil engineers, and educators.
We absolutely do.
But the stark takeaway from this material is that academic education alone is dangerously incomplete. Without financial education, even the smartest, most dedicated students risk spending their entire lives running on a treadmill. They will spend the best years of their lives operating out of fear and desire, working for money, rather than learning the language of assets, systems, and cash flow to make money work for them.
It truly is a dual curriculum. You rely on the academic to earn the initial capital, and you rely on the financial to keep, protect, and multiply that capital. And that leaves us with a final thought to mull over, extending beyond the source text itself.
Okay, let's hear it.
If the global academic school system was completely dismantled today and rebuilt from the ground up by the world's most successful investors and business owners, how would the typical school day change? And would society actually be healthier and more robust, or just completely different?
That is a question that will definitely reframe how you look at the world. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. By tackling this kind of challenging conceptual material today, you aren't just practicing your English comprehension, you are actively exercising that mental muscle. You are making a direct deposit straight into your own intellectual asset column. Keep asking, how can I afford it? Keep challenging the scripts you've been handed, and we will catch you on the next deep dive.